The sky was clear that morning. Birds flew over quiet towns. Roads were empty and shops stood still. It looked like peace, but peace had a strange silence that day. From far above the clouds, something watched. A fleet of alien ships hovered in low orbit, hidden from human eyes. These ships were dark and quiet, shaped like long floating daggers. Inside one of them, Commander Vrexar of the Kroon Empire stared down at Earth with growing confusion. "Still no movement?" he asked his officer. "None, Commander," the officer replied. "No military, no resistance, no humans." Earth was empty. Cities had power. Lights still glowed in buildings. Cars were parked, as if people had left in a hurry. Meals sat untouched on kitchen tables. But there were no voices, no footsteps, no people. The Kroon were expecting a war. They had studied humans for years, watching their wars, their machines, their courage. But now, all of it was gone. They landed. Vrexar's ship touched down in a large city, once filled with noise and life. Tall buildings stood like skeletons. The wind moved papers along the streets. It felt like walking through a forgotten dream. But they were not alone. From the shadows, dozens of dogs appeared. Big dogs, small dogs, mutts and pure breeds. Some limped, others ran freely. All of them stared at the alien invaders with calm, waiting eyes. At first, the soldiers laughed. "Primitive guardians," one said. "A failed species, hiding behind pets," said another. Vrexar was not amused. He had studied human behavior. He knew how much these creatures mattered to them. "Do not harm them," he ordered. "Not yet." From behind the city skyline, another ship descended, sleek, silver, and shaped like a falling leaf. It belonged to the Dravari, allies of the Kroon. But this ship had only one passenger, Princess Zarella. Her presence caused surprise. She was young, tall, and wore a long cloak of shimmering cloth. Her skin was silver blue, and her eyes were deep green like forest shadows. She did not bow to Vrexar. "I wish to walk the earth," she said softly. Vrexar raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "To pay a debt," she replied. She stepped into the abandoned streets with purpose. Her guards followed at a distance, but she waved them away. She approached one of the dogs, a large golden retriever sitting in front of a closed home. He did not bark. He only wagged his tail and waited. Zarella knelt down. The dog sniffed her hand, then licked her fingers gently. "Captain," she whispered, as if calling an old friend. The soldiers around her exchanged confused glances. Zarella entered the house. Dust covered the furniture. A child's toy rested on the couch. A family photo hung on the wall. Two parents, a small boy and the golden dog between them. She picked up the photo and stared at it. A memory flickered behind her eyes. Her injured body hidden in this very home, helped by this very family. A time when she had fled from her own people. A time when she was weak, and they protected her. She owed them her life. Outside, the dogs gathered. More arrived from the distance. Dozens became hundreds. Some barked once as if giving a signal. The soldiers grew nervous. "They're only animals," someone said. But none of the dogs attacked. They just watched, waiting. Vrexar paced. "Where are the humans?" he shouted. "What kind of game is this?" Zarella stepped out, holding the photo. "They are not gone," she said. "They are resting." Vrexar scowled. "Resting?" She nodded. "They knew you'd come. They prepared." "And left their animals behind?" "No," she replied. "They left guardians." Vrexar laughed, but it had no joy. "Do you mean to tell me the humans trusted Their planet to dogs? Zirilla's voice turned cold. These are not just pets. These dogs have memories, training. Some have enhancements. But more than anything, they have loyalty. Vrexar opened his mouth to respond, but a sharp alarm cut through the air. One of his patrols, sent into a distant suburb, had gone silent. Moments later, video streamed in. The patrol's ship was overturned. The metal was clawed. Gear was missing. The crew lay on the ground, alive but stunned, confused, and covered in scratches. One of them mumbled in fear. The dogs, they coordinated. Zirilla met Vrexar's eyes. They warned you. You didn't listen. Vrexar stepped back, finally beginning to understand. The Earth was not unguarded. It was waiting. And now the dogs had seen the enemy. Far across the fields and forests, howls rose into the air, loud, long, and united. Something was coming. Something human. The golden retriever sat quietly on the porch. His fur was dusty, and his eyes held a deep, steady calm. He did not bark when Princess Zirilla stepped closer. He simply watched her with quiet understanding, as if he remembered. Zirilla bent down and gently touched his head. Her fingers moved slowly through his fur. The dog's tail wagged once, then settled. He looked up at her, as if waiting for her to speak. "I remember you," she said softly, though the dog could not reply. The street around them remained still. Alien soldiers kept their distance. They did not understand why the princess showed interest in a single animal, but Zirilla understood. She walked past the dog and into the house. It smelled of wood and thyme. Faint sunlight came through the window. A small table stood near the door, and an old jacket hung on a hook nearby. On the wall, she found the photograph again. The same family, the same dog. She held the frame in her hands. The boy's smile looked familiar. His parents stood close behind him. They had given her shelter once. They had no reason to help her, but they did. They fed her. They cleaned her wounds. They risked everything. The golden retriever, his name had been Captain, never left her side during that time. He followed her through the house, sat near her when she slept, and growled softly when strange sounds came from outside. One night, she had asked the boy why Captain was so loyal. "Because he knows who his family is," the boy had answered. Now she stood in the same house, holding the same memory. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "I never forgot." Outside, Captain had not moved. His ears twitched at every sound. The croon soldiers watched him uneasily. One reached for a scanner. Zirilla returned just in time. "Do not scan him," she warned. The soldier lowered the device. "Why not?" "Because he is more than you think." Vrexar arrived at the house. His expression was tight. "Why are we wasting time with animals?" Zirilla stepped outside to meet him. "Because they matter. They are not here by chance. They were chosen." Vrexar frowned. "Chosen for what?" She didn't answer. Instead, she walked down the steps and stood beside Captain. She placed her hand gently on his back. He stood with her, strong and proud, like a soldier beside his commander. "There is a reason these animals were left behind," she said. "You assume they were forgotten, but they were trusted." Vrexar crossed his arms. "Trusted to do what?" To protect, to remember." The alien commander laughed, but there was no warmth in the sound. "They're animals, loyal, yes, but no match for us." Zirilla looked down at Captain. "He once saved me from your kind. You don't know what loyalty can become when shaped by love." A sound broke through the silence. A low, deep bark came from the edge of the street. Another dog appeared. Then two more. They didn't come in a rush. They walked slowly, with purpose. Their eyes were sharp, their heads high. Vrexar's soldiers raised their weapons. "No," Zarilla said calmly. "Stand down." The dogs gathered near Captain. Together they formed a quiet circle. There was no growling, no fear, only alertness and patience. They looked like they were waiting for something. One of the Kroon guards shifted nervously. "Why are they acting like that?" "They're trained," Zarilla answered. "Not just in tricks, in tactics, in defense." Vrexar scoffed. "You expect me to believe Earth's last defense is dogs?" Zarilla didn't reply. Instead, she tapped a small device on her wrist. A blue light blinked once, then faded. Miles away, deep underground, machines hummed to life. Lights flickered on in metal corridors. Doors opened, and behind them, humans began to wake. Back on the surface, the air felt different. The wind shifted. Birds took flight. A distant rumble echoed across the horizon. Zarilla spoke again. Her voice was steady. "You came for humans, but Earth still breathes, and Earth remembers." Captain barked once, short, sharp, and loud. The other dogs joined him. The sound traveled far, carried by the wind. The Kroon soldiers stepped back. One muttered, "Something's not right." In the trees beyond the city, more dogs appeared. Some large, some small, some with glowing collars or metal limbs. They moved silently into position. No commands were spoken. They didn't need any. They had been trained to protect. Trained by humans who understood that the day might come when machines would fail, but loyalty would not. Zarilla looked at Vrexar and said one last thing. "You thought we fled. We didn't. We prepared." Captain stepped forward, standing between the aliens and the house. Behind him, the other dogs followed. The first line of Earth's defense had just taken its place. Commander Vrexar stood near the city square, his arms crossed and his face cold. The air around him felt tense. Kroon soldiers moved in quiet groups, scanning buildings and sending reports. Yet all they found were more dogs, no humans, no signs of a working government, just silence and those watchful eyes. "They're everywhere," one soldier said, wiping sweat from his brow. "On rooftops, in alleys, inside cars, just watching." Vrexar didn't like being watched. "They're animals," he said, shaking his head. "Collect them all. Begin at once." The order was clear. The response was fast. Small groups of Kroon soldiers moved into neighborhoods with nets, scanners, and containment crates. They expected to grab a few strays and be done. They were wrong. The first patrol, made of 5 soldiers, entered a quiet suburb. The houses looked untouched. Lawns were overgrown. Mail sat unopened. One dog lay near a porch, chewing a bone. Another sat inside a parked car, staring out the window. The squad moved in. As one soldier reached for the nearest dog, something snapped. The animal leapt high, dodging the net with speed the scanners didn't predict. Another dog barked loud, sharp, and rhythmic. It sounded almost like a signal. Within seconds, more dogs rushed in from different directions. The team was overwhelmed. A recording from one soldier's helmet captured the moment. Dogs moved in perfect timing, like trained fighters. One knocked over a weapon. Another bit through a communication line. The team fell into panic. Shouts and static filled the audio before it went black. Vrexar watched the playback later, lips pressed tight. "These are not normal animals," the technician said. "Some carry tech we don't recognize. A few have mechanical implants. They work together. It's coordinated." A second team was sent out, better equipped. They wore armor. They had stronger nets. They carried stun batons and chemical sprays. They failed too. This time, their ship didn't return. A few hours later, it was found upside down near a dry riverbed. The metal hull had long scratch marks. The crew was inside, alive, but dazed. They remembered little, only saying they were surrounded and confused. Vrexar's pride turned to irritation. "Enough," he snapped. "Send drones, scan from the air, eliminate them if you must." But when the drones flew over the towns, something interfered. The sky filled with static. Signals dropped. Some drones fell from the sky. Others returned with blurry footage and strange sound patterns. Howls, beeps, clicks. Zirilla stood beside him, quiet but firm. "They warned you," she said. Vrexar glared at her. "You knew this would happen," she nodded. "They are not simple guardians. They were created for moments like this." Vrexar pointed toward the distant mountains. "Where are the humans?" "They sleep," she said calmly. "But they will wake." The commander turned to his advisors. "They trained animals to fight, that's all? No defense grids? No weapons?" "They are the weapons," Zirilla replied. "The dogs were left behind not because humans didn't care. They were trusted. These creatures remember smells, voices, homes. They protect what was important." Vrexar refused to believe animals could stand in his way. He ordered patrols to enter the forests. Those teams never reported back. Each day brought more confusion. Drones vanished, equipment failed, dog packs grew larger. Some wore collars that blinked. Others moved in groups of 5 or 10, always alert, always watching. And then something changed. One morning, the entire alien fleet received the same message. A video played across every screen, inside ships, bases, even on personal devices. It showed a field of green grass under a blue sky. A child's voice spoke softly. "You came looking for humans." The image shifted. Dogs stood tall on hills. Some wore armor. One had a small device on its back. "You thought we were gone." A low hum began. "But we're still here." The screen showed Zirilla stepping forward. She placed her hand on Captain's head, and they never stopped waiting. The feed cut. No one knew how it reached them. No source could be traced. It was like Earth itself had spoken. Panic spread among the lower ranks. Some wanted to retreat. Others feared what might come next. Vrexar felt his grip slipping. He stared out at the horizon. The dogs were not just acting on instinct. They were executing a plan designed by humans, and that meant something far worse was coming. He clenched his fists and muttered, "What else did they leave behind?" The wind blew gently over the hills beyond the city. Trees swayed. Birds flew low across the sky. From a distance, the alien ships looked small and quiet, like forgotten toys in the sky. But underground, hidden from every sensor and scanner, something far more important had just awakened. Zirilla led the way through a forest path few had ever walked. Her boots pressed softly against the mossy ground. Captain, the golden retriever, walked beside her. His ears were raised. His steps matched hers, silent and steady. Behind them, 2 of Vrexar's lieutenants followed nervously. They had been ordered to watch her, though even they were unsure who truly held control now. Zirilla moved with calm purpose, as if she had walked this trail many times before. She stopped at a thick tree with red leaves. Without speaking, she placed her hand on its bark. A soft hum responded. The tree split apart, revealing a hidden doorway beneath its roots. The alien stepped back, surprised. "A human bunker?" one asked. Zirilla looked over her shoulder. "Built by those who saw the future." She entered first. Captain followed, his tail still and alert. The tunnel beyond the tree sloped downward, lit by blue lights that glowed without wires. The walls were smooth, like glass melted into shape. The path led deep, far below the surface. At the bottom, a large chamber opened. It was quiet. Rows of smooth pods lined the space, hundreds of them. Each pod held a person inside, asleep, breathing slowly. "This is where they are," she said. The ones who remained. The lieutenant stared. You hid humans underground? Zarilla nodded. Not hidden. Preserved. One of the soldiers stepped closer to a pod. Inside was a woman in a uniform. Her eyes were closed. Her hand held a small metal token with the Earth emblem. Soldiers, the alien whispered. Not just soldiers, Zarilla said. Thinkers, builders, healers, protectors. Why didn't they fight when we came? They didn't want to. I'll lose Earth twice. The aliens looked confused. Zarilla moved between the pods, her fingers brushing each one with care. Years ago, the humans knew the Kroon would come. They saw the signs. They prepared. But they didn't want to destroy their home just to keep it, so they made a choice. She stopped at one particular pod. Inside was a young boy, maybe 13, with a small stuffed dog beside him. She smiled gently. They chose sleep. They left the surface to the guardians. Dogs? The soldier asked, raising a brow. She nodded again. The dogs were trained, not just in obedience, but in duty. They were paired with these families. Their memories were linked, their senses heightened. If danger came, they would act. They were not just pets. They were legacy. Captain sat beside a nearby pod, his nose pressed gently against the glass. Inside was a man, his former owner. Zarilla knelt beside him. He waited for you, she whispered to the dog, and you waited for him. The lights in the chamber brightened. A low sound filled the space. Machines powered up. The pods hummed. Monitors blinked. On one screen, a message appeared in simple letters. Threat confirmed. Phase 2. Begin. Revival. The two alien soldiers stepped back. One reached for his communicator. Commander Vrexar must see this. Zarilla rose. Her face held no fear. He won't understand. He thinks power is in numbers, in weapons, in control. But humans know something deeper. They understand waiting. And they understand love. A soft hiss filled the air as one of the pods opened. The boy with the stuffed dog stirred. His eyes fluttered open. For a moment he looked confused. Then he saw Zarilla and smiled. You kept your promise, he whispered. I did, she answered. Captain barked once, tail wagging. More. Pods began to open. Slowly, carefully, people woke up. Some blinked against the light. Others looked around, recognizing faces and voices. Zarilla turned to the aliens. Tell Vrexar this. Earth did not fall. Earth chose patience. Above ground, the skies began to change. Power stations lit up. Old satellites reactivated. Communication towers came back online. Somewhere, far off in the desert, an old human base received a signal. Lights flickered on. Drones activated. Defense systems rebooted. Across forests and fields, dogs howled, not in warning, but in welcome. The Guardians had done their job. Now, the people were returning, and Earth was ready. Commander Vrexar stood at the edge of the command deck, staring at the screen. The forest below was quiet. Too quiet. Not a single human had been seen, yet his patrols kept vanishing. Their equipment failed. Their scanners returned strange data. He didn't understand. He didn't like not understanding. Why do we keep losing contact? He asked sharply. The technician adjusted a panel. Something is blocking the signals. It's not natural. It's moving. Vrexar frowned. Moving? Yes, Commander. Like it knows where we are. Just then, another alert flashed across the screen. A patrol drone had gone down. Not shot. Not damaged by weather. Just stopped. The last frame showed a dog looking directly at the camera, eyes glowing softly. Vrexar slammed his fist on the console. How can animals cause this much trouble? No one answered. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, packs of dogs moved like shadows. They didn't run in fear. They didn't scatter. They marched together, organized, silent, and sure. Some wore collars with blinking lights. Others had thin metallic bands around their legs. These were not decorations. They were part of something bigger. Long ago, humans had faced many wars, some on Earth, some in space. They learned quickly. They knew they couldn't rely on machines alone. Machines could be hacked, systems could fail. But loyalty was strong, and it lived in the heart of every dog. So they created the Sentinel program. The goal was simple: prepare for the day humans might disappear. Dogs were trained in ways no one imagined. They were taught to follow complex patterns, read signals, even understand basic commands in multiple languages. Some were given small implants to boost memory. Others received sensors to detect energy shifts and radiation. Each was matched to a family. Each was part of a plan. Captain had been one of the first. Zarila had seen him in action years ago. When her own people betrayed her and left her to die, it was Captain who sensed her pain. He didn't bark. He didn't panic. He simply lay beside her, keeping her warm through the night. She never forgot. Now, that same loyalty burned brighter than ever. In a hidden field, a group of Kroon scouts moved slowly. They thought they were alone. They whispered to each other, unsure if they should go further. Then, one scout stepped forward and heard a click. It wasn't a trap. It was a signal. From the trees, a line of dogs appeared. Not aggressive, not growling. Just standing, watching. The scout froze. Then he noticed something strange. Each dog had a tag with numbers, coordinates, military codes. Old Earth codes. These are not wild animals, he whispered. The lead dog, black with one white ear, stepped forward and dropped a small metal box at the scout's feet. The scout opened it slowly. Inside was a recording device. It played. A message in a human voice. Leave now. This world is not yours. You have been warned. The scout ran. Back at the command ship, the report came through. Vrexar listened, face pale. These creatures, they use tactics. They gather intelligence. They even leave messages. Zarila stood nearby, calm as always. They learned from the best. Vrexar stared at her. Are you saying humans trained animals to fight wars? Not just wars, she replied. To protect life. To protect home. He turned away, frustrated. This is madness. No, she said softly. This is humanity. Elsewhere, the awakening continued. More humans opened their eyes in underground bunkers. Each one greeted by familiar faces, dogs they had raised, protected, and loved. Now those same dogs stood between them and danger. Some families cried. Others smiled in disbelief. The dogs simply wagged their tails and leaned close. In one room, an older man knelt down, wrapping his arms around a shaggy brown dog. You waited, he whispered. All this time. The dog licked his face, then trotted to the door. He barked once, as if to say, let's go. Above ground, the world shifted. Lights returned to cities. Satellites blinked to life. Roads cleared. Systems that had slept for years began working again. And through it all, the dogs moved like silent protectors, guiding, leading, warning. They were not soldiers. They were more than that. They were symbols. Symbols of the bond between species. Symbols of hope that even in silence, someone would stand, watch. Someone would remember. The aliens didn't understand it. They had no word for loyalty that matched the human meaning. To them, power came from fear. To humans, strength came from love. That was the difference, and that difference would cost the Kroon everything. The sun rose slowly over the hills, painting the sky with orange light. The earth looked calm, But something powerful had begun. Beneath the quiet surface, bunkers opened, lights flickered on, machines hummed, and inside, humans were waking from their long sleep. In one large chamber, a woman with short gray hair sat up and took a deep breath. She wore a badge on her chest, an old military symbol. Beside her, a young man rubbed his eyes and looked around. "Are we too late?" he asked. The woman shook her head. "No, we're right on time." A black and white dog wagged its tail at their feet, waiting. Elsewhere, more pods opened. Families reunited. Soldiers stood and stretched. Scientists checked equipment. Doctors helped those who felt weak. The underground facilities had kept them alive, safe, and ready. Zarila moved among them, offering a hand where needed. She was not a leader here, but she was trusted. The humans knew her. They remembered what she had done for them. She had earned her place. In the main control room, an old man with sharp eyes stared at the large monitor. He saw the alien ships floating above. "They finally came," he said. A voice answered from behind. "And they made a mess of things." The man turned. It was General Harris, one of the first to volunteer for stasis. He walked slowly, but his steps were firm. "How many are awake?" he asked. "Almost 8,000. More coming online each hour." Harris nodded. "That's enough for now." The command team gathered around him. Maps were loaded, signals tested, systems reconnected. Drones were launched to check the surface. Within minutes, the humans knew everything. Alien ships still circled the planet. Cities stood untouched, but Kroon soldiers moved through them. And dogs? Dogs had held the line. A technician brought up footage. It showed animals blocking alien troops, guiding people to safety and disabling equipment. It also showed confusion in the enemy ranks. "Good dogs," Harris said with a faint smile. Now it was time to act. He turned to Zarila. "Will they listen to you?" "Vrexer will not," she said. "But his soldiers might. Then we'll give them a choice." Above ground, Kroon camps grew tense. Their scanners kept failing. Their drones crashed, and the number of dogs around them increased. One by one, they began to feel trapped. Then came the message. All screens lit up with a human face. General Harris stared directly into the camera. "This is Earth," he said. "You came here without invitation. You found no welcome. You made one mistake. You thought we were weak." The video changed. It showed waking soldiers, humming factories, and old weapons returning to power. "We are not weak. We waited. And now, we remember everything." The feed ended. At once, hidden doors opened across the planet. From hills, valleys, and deserts, humans stepped out. They wore no fear, only purpose. Some carried weapons, others tools. All of them had dogs walking beside them. The aliens panicked. They fired warning shots. They tried to regroup, but nothing worked. Their systems shut down. Communication lines broke. Ships lost power. Bases went dark, and then came the strikes. Humans moved fast. They used old tunnels, hidden paths, and quiet tactics. They didn't attack with noise. They attacked with skill. One by one, alien strongholds fell without major battles. At a desert outpost, a group of Kroon guards waited for reinforcements. Instead, they saw shadows move across the sand. Then, they heard footsteps. Calm, steady. A team of 6 humans stepped forward. Their leader raised a hand. "You don't need to fight," he said. "Leave your weapons and go." The aliens hesitated. Behind the humans, a line of dogs stood ready. The leader spoke again. "We're giving you a chance." The guards dropped their weapons. Similar scenes played out everywhere. Some Kroon soldiers surrendered. Others ran. A few fought, but quickly realized they were outmatched. In the sky, the command ships began pulling back. They had lost control. Commander Vrexar stood on his bridge, staring at the reports. One by one, red markers filled the map. His forces were shrinking. His grip was gone. He turned to Zarilla's image on the screen. "You planned this." "No," she replied. "They did. I just believed in them." "You helped them," he growled. "I helped my family." Vrexar's ship began to shake. Systems blinked. A voice echoed through the deck. "This is Earth Defense. You are trespassing. Leave or be removed." For the first time, Vrexar looked afraid. He gave the order to retreat. Across the sky, alien ships turned. Engines fired. The fleet rose slowly, then vanished into space. Earth was free. On the ground, people looked up. They held each other. They held their dogs. Some wept. Others laughed. But all of them understood one thing. They had survived, not by fighting first, but by waiting. And now that they were back, the stars would remember this day. The sky was blue again. Not the dull gray from ships overhead, not the thick smoke from battle, but clear and open, the kind that stretched far past the mountains. For the first time in years, Earth felt like Earth again. In the city center, people stood among broken machines and fallen signs. The streets were still cracked, and many buildings needed repair, but laughter could be heard. Children played where tanks once rolled. Families reunited. The wind carried voices full of hope. Near an old library, workers lifted a new flag. It was simple, blue background, green circle in the middle, and a white paw print beside a human hand. It stood for what saved the world, people and dogs, together. General Harris walked through a quiet neighborhood. He moved slowly, his cane tapping the ground. He paused at a house with peeling paint and wild vines. The door was open. Inside, furniture was covered in dust. A photo rested on a shelf. 2 parents, a boy, and a golden retriever. He smiled. Captain lay near the steps. Though older now, the dog still watched everything with sharp eyes. He stood when he saw Harris and gave a small bark. "You're still on duty," Harris said with a nod. Captain wagged his tail once. Further down the road, Zirilla sat on a bench surrounded by young students. They asked her questions about the stars, about her planet, about why she stayed. She answered each one with patience, her voice soft but sure. One girl raised her hand. "Are you going home now?" Zirilla paused. She looked at the city rising again, the people working side by side, the dogs walking beside their families. "I am home," she said. The children smiled. One handed her a drawing. It showed Zirilla holding hands with a child and a dog, with stars above them. Meanwhile, workers from different regions gathered at what was once the Kroon landing site. There they began building something new. Not a weapon, not a wall, but a monument. At the center stood a tall bronze statue. A golden retriever sat proudly at the base, eyes focused on the horizon. Beside him stood a human woman in uniform. And next to her, Zirilla, her hand resting on the dog's back, the plaque read, "For those who watched, who waited, and who never left." Visitors came from across the world. Some laid flowers, others brought collars, tags, or notes. One note, "Read, you protected us. We remember." In a small village, an older man opened a hidden cellar. Inside were tools, maps, and old training manuals. But what mattered most was the notebook. He handed it to a boy. "These stories aren't just about battles," he said. "They're about trust." The boy flipped through pages filled with drawings of dogs, names of training units, and short messages from those who came before. "Do I need to memorize all of it?" the boy asked. "No," the man said, smiling. "You need to live it." Across the globe, dogs who had stood watch were given new roles. Not just protectors, but symbols of courage. Some helped rebuild towns, others guided lost children, or comforted those who had woken without families. They weren't trained to fight anymore. They were trusted to lead. In one open field, a large group gathered. People sat on the grass. Children ran barefoot. In the center, a storyteller spoke into a small speaker. Her voice was clear and calm. Once, they thought humans had left. But we hadn't. We were sleeping. We had faith that someone would guard the light while we rested. And they did. Not with weapons or anger, but with patience. She paused and looked at the dogs resting nearby. They waited. And when the time came, they didn't fight out of hate. They acted out of love. At night, lights from old cities flickered back to life. Skyscrapers glowed again. Farms lit up their fields. Satellites blinked in orbit. The planet had scars, but it was healing. Above, in distant space, the stars remained quiet, but not unaware. Other species had seen what happened. Whispers spread through galactic councils and trading ports. Words passed from one alien world to the next. Earth was undefended, but they came back. No, they were never gone. And their pets were soldiers. No, they were family. Some civilizations sent messages of peace. Others warned their leaders to stay away from Earth. One thing was clear. Humanity was not to be taken lightly. Back on Earth, Zarila walked with Captain through a garden full of blooming flowers. The air smelled clean. The sky above was turning, golden with the setting sun. "You did well," she whispered. Captain looked up and licked her hand. In the distance, a group of children ran with their dogs. Their laughter echoed through the hills. The future was no longer something to fear. It was something to build. And though much had been lost, even more had been protected. Because when everything else faded, one thing remained. Loyalty, and that changed everything.